We ask an expert if they're going far enough. The Warriors filled 2 stadiums, including one they aren't even playing at. Cameron George is live. The post-budget breakfasts that were apparently anything but budget. How many Weet-Bix can you get for $75 a head? We explore the options. Hay fever season is approaching. Hold your noses because it could be worse than ever. The refloat of North Shore commuter ferry services. Auckland Transport's here with the details. And a ferret tale that does not end well after the ashes of beloved pets go astray. You can watch us on Freeview Channel 50. RNZ News at 5 o'clock. Ahiahi Mārie, good afternoon. I'm Evie Ashton. Te Whatu Order is accusing the Senior Doctors Union of escalating strike action without telling its members the details of its current pay offer. The Association of Salaried Medical Specialists says its 5,500 members, who were already set to walk off the job next Thursday, have today voted to strike for 12 hours on October the 2nd and for 24 hours on October the 24th. Te Whatu Order's Chief Executive, Margie Upper, is urging the union to present the latest offer to senior doctors and dentists so they can judge. But Association Executive Director Sarah Dalton says the action comes after a failure to secure a salary increase with an inflation adjustment.
Te Whatu Order talks a strong game about valuing their staff and in particular valuing senior doctors and dentists, but then they've turned around, this is the 3rd year running, that they've offered a real terms pay decrease to a workforce that they acknowledge is scarce and hard to recruit. It's just stupid.
Margie Upper says the 12-hour strike will disrupt planned care for 500 patients, while the 24-hour strike will cause delays for up to 1,700 patients. The National Party says its immigration policy will create a red carpet for skilled tech workers from other countries. It would offer a few hundred visas each year for high-earning remote workers and recent graduates from the top 100 universities. Immigration spokesperson Erica Stanford says National would also create a residence visa for people earning at least $400,000 a year.
These 3 visas are just about trying something new, about being a bit innovative in the immigration system, which we haven't seen over the last 6 years, about targeting very highly skilled young people to this country to help scale up our tech businesses.
Chris Hipkins says it's a policy that only looks good on the surface. The Labour Party leader doesn't think it would attract that many people.
It sounds a lot like their sort of millionaire investor category that they introduced, where I think only 1 or 2 people ever came into the country under it. And again, another clickbait policy. It might sound good on the surface, but in reality, I think they'd need to do more than that to attract those sorts of people to come to New Zealand.
The ACT Party leader David Seymour wants more doctor checks on people receiving welfare benefits due to long-term illness or addiction. David Seymour says people on benefits due to addiction could lose them if they don't seek treatment.
You've got to at least be making an effort. We're talking about people who make no effort to beat their addiction and become productive, but continue to be subsidised by other taxpayers who do go to work. That's not right, it's not fair, and it's not actually good for the person being paid to stay home with addictions either.
The Libyan Red Crescent says the number of people who have died in flooding in the city of Derna has risen to 11,000, with more fatalities expected and 35,000 people left homeless. A former UN Special Advisor on Libya, Stephanie Turco-Williams, says the suffering is incomprehensible.
I was in contact with someone who lost 27 members of his family in Derna. So it's impossible to comprehend, to understand the agony and the suffering.
And Kim Hill says it was a hard decision to leave a job she loves, but it's time to step away from the microphone. The RNZ national broadcaster has announced she'll step down from her Saturday morning show after 21 years in the role. Kim Hill says she's ready to take a break and her final Saturday morning program will be on November the 25th.
I'm 68, and who knows how long one has to live. And so there are bound to be other things that I want to do. I don't know, grandbabies, they're quite tempting to spend more time with.
There's no voice like that voice. Kim Hill says that she'll be back at RNZ next year, working on a series of in-depth interviews instead. To sport now, and Warriors halfback Shaun Johnson will take his place in the starting lineup for tomorrow's must-win NRL semi-final against the Newcastle Knights. Johnson, who's been nursing a calf injury, made it through today's captain's run, proving he's fit enough to play. Centre Marcelo Montoya knows what it means to have the Warriors player of the year back on the field.
He just brings a bit of calmness to the team, Shaun, and he's a world-class player. You know, he knows what to do in those big moments. He knows how to ice those opportunities. So with Shawnee there, he just kind of calms the team right down and just lets us kind of do our job a bit more better.
The game at Mount Smart Stadium kicks off at 6:05 tomorrow night. The winner of the game will travel to Brisbane to play the Broncos next week, and for the loser, the season is over. Some players will be battling for spots on the All Blacks' first choice team when they take on Namibia at the Rugby World Cup tomorrow morning. Assistant coach Scott McLeod says some starting positions could be up for grabs following the side's successive defeats to South Africa and France.
The World Cup's about a whole squad, and we've got to give opportunity for people to prove themselves. As it's been recognised, the last two results haven't been the way we wanted them to go, so we're giving people an opportunity to put their hand up.
Meanwhile, the only All Black to reach 100 years of age, Roy Roper, has died just weeks after marking the milestone. Roper's first game with the All Blacks was against Australia in 1949. He played 3 positions on the day and scored New Zealand's only try. Koinanga, pita kōrero.
Tomorrow morning, former UK Prime Minister Theresa May, who does not want to be remembered only for failing to negotiate a Brexit. Julia Edna, on why fringe ideas are becoming mainstream, and Professor Kevin Tracy with the science of the vagus nerve and its potential. Call Kim Hill. Join me tomorrow morning from 8 on RNZ National.
And we're funded through New Zealand On Air. You're with Lisa Owen next on Checkpoint. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Saturday. For all of Te Ika Maui, the North Island, apart from Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, and including Marlborough, isolated showers clearing this evening. Mainly fine tomorrow, but cloud increasing in western areas. Northwesterlies rising to gale in Wellington and Marlborough tomorrow evening. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, showers, some heavy with thunderstorms possible, clearing this evening, fine tomorrow. Nelson and Buller, cloudy periods and isolated showers, clearing to mainly fine tonight. However, showers developing in Buller tomorrow afternoon. Westland and Fiordland, mainly fine today, rain spreading north tomorrow, heavy in the ranges. Canterbury, mainly fine weather, high cloud increasing tomorrow. Northwesterlies rising to severe gale in exposed places tomorrow. Southland and Otago, remaining showers clearing this afternoon and becoming fine. Cloud increasing tomorrow and showers returning in the evening. And for Rekohu, Chatham Islands, showers clearing tomorrow. It is 7 minutes past 5. I will have traffic news and headlines for you at about 20 past 5.
Nā mihi Evie, tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai, haere mai, ki Checkpoint I tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. It's been called a scandemic. Now retail banks are joining forces to fight fraudsters with a raft of new measures, including a joint scam-busting centre. Cyber watchdog CERT estimates financial scams cost Kiwis $20 million in 2022. So here's some of what the retail banks are committing to. They'll explore an industry-wide confirmation of payee account name checking service. That's so people can see who they're sending their money to. Stamping out so-called mule accounts that scammed money is filtered through before being sent on to other accounts. And more consistent and timely outcomes for customers who've lost money. Earlier this week, a former fund manager told Checkpoint a class action against the banks was on the cards due to their alleged lack of action around scams. Well, joining us now is banking expert, Massey University Associate Professor Claire Matthews. Kia ora, Claire.
Kia ora, Lisa.
What difference do you think these measures will make?
Well, that's really hard to judge. I think it will have an impact and it will lead to some reduction, we would hope. But at the same time, what it will lead to is scammers looking for alternative ways of doing things in order to get round the measures that are put in place.
So it's whack-a-mole, basically?
That's my view, absolutely.
OK, so is there anything that has prevented the banks from taking these steps earlier in the game? Because they don't seem too complicated.
Well, arguably, no, it's just been a matter of getting a commitment to do so. But it's also important to remember that they have been, some of the things that they're talking about is stuff that they're actually already doing. It's just reinforcing that these are things that they do. And they have been putting a lot of effort in, but it is, going back to your analogy, it hasn't been a matter of they've been doing things, but people have got round that, so now they've got to find new ways of doing things.
This confirmation of payee issue, which is where names and accounts don't match up and there's no automatic matching of that, they're going to explore doing that. What are the barriers to them? Why can't they just crack on and get it done?
Well, it's a technological answer, so it's never simple to introduce new technology, and it's got to work with multiple systems because it's got to work for all the different banks. It's got to enable the banks to talk to each other. So it's not straightforward to do, but it is certainly something that's useful to do. It's a question of exactly how well it will work because if you set up an account and that has the right name that the payer is expecting to see, then that's not going to raise any red flags for them and they're going to continue to make the payment. So it's not a silver bullet. It's just another step, another part of the process in terms of trying to reduce the number of customers that are impacted.
This joint anti-scam centre is obviously based on an offshore model. Singapore has it. What do you know about the success of it there?
I don't know a huge amount. It's only been operating for about 18 months in Singapore. It's based within the police, so it is a police unit, but it involves a lot of additional parties. So 6 of the banks in Singapore have co-located staff into the centre so that they can talk more readily and the police have got more access. According to their website, they've had success where they've managed to retrieve $10 million for a customer. That was one of their very early successes. So, they've definitely had some success, although I think it actually was a loss of 14 million. So it's not like they recovered everything, but certainly that's a huge recovery for them. And they've done 12 investigations, I think it was. So, there's some clear work being done and some significant success being held.
Customers, I am thinking, will be most interested on whether they get their money back and who pays that money back. So part of this joint initiative is that they're going to improve consistent and timely outcomes for customers. So, who should pay? If you transfer money out of your account and it's going to a scamster, who should pay your money back?
Well, ideally, the scammer does.
But that hardly ever happens. So what's the bank?
No, that's hardly ever happened.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me, it's really hard to justify the bank being liable if they've actually not done anything to contribute to it. Now, if they have actually contributed to it in some way by not having the necessary steps in place or not having, I'd seen a red flag that they should have and so taken action, then there's a liability on the bank. But if the bank has simply followed the instructions of their customer and made a payment, it's really hard to see why they should be held liable. And that's not good for the customer either, because obviously they've been scammed and they shouldn't be held responsible. But there's no simple answer to that, unfortunately.
Is alleged apathy on the part of the bank to make changes to the system, does that create some kind of liability, which is what some people would argue in this situation and have?
It's a matter of whether you can prove that there's been they've had an apathetic approach. The reality is that the banks are doing and have been doing for some time a lot of work around schemes. That if you talk to the banks, they have quite significant teams of people in place to try and avoid this. They don't want customers losing money. Because they don't want their customers to lose money, but also because of the negative effect it has for them in terms of reputation and all the rest of it. So from their own perspective, they don't want it either. So they are actually putting a lot of effort in. Whether it's quite the right things that they've been doing, that's a different issue. But I think just suggesting that they've been showing apathy is really quite harsh, and I don't think it's a realistic assessment of the situation.
We're almost out of time, Claire, but very quickly, I'm wondering sort of time frame for this to get done in order that it would make a difference, because they're talking about thinking about things rather than doing. Giving a
Yeah, and
guarantee.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a problem. They need to be saying we're going to do these things, and they need to do it promptly. Because
A deadline? Giving themselves a deadline, Claire?
If I was putting a deadline, then I'd say by Christmas.
Really appreciate your time, Claire. That is Claire Matthews, who's the Associate Professor from Massey University and expert in banking there. It is 14 minutes after 5. Interested in your thoughts on that one, 2101 on text. Tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. Do you reckon they'll make a difference, these new guidelines? Kia amo tonu mai, you're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. The National Party is promising to roll out the red carpet for top tech talent, if elected, with new visas for the highly skilled and highly paid, as well as recent graduates from elite universities. But the plan announced in Auckland may have also made the party's ongoing tax tangle even trickier. Our Deputy Political Editor, Craig McCulloch, was at the announcement.
No one should lose their vision because they cannot access a simple test.
That's the promise of Toku Eyes, a Kiwi tech startup using AI-powered tools to help detect early signs of disease through a simple eye scan.
If you can see the future, you can change it.
It's the present that's posing a problem, though, for Chief Executive Ihsan Vagefi, who's eyeing a lack of talent in New Zealand to fill his R&D lab. He says the sector is crying out for more workers.
We've been working with immigration for a couple of years now just to bring people in, and it's not easy. It's not easy today. Anything that will ease that process will be great.
Enter National leader Christopher Luxon, who today rolled out the red carpet for foreign tech whizzes, pledging to bring in the world's best and brightest.
We want to turn the volume up. We want this economy to really get moving and growing.
The party wants to create 3 new visas, 3 new pathways for people to enter the country. There'll be 500 spots in the first year for recent graduates from the country's top 100 universities. They can come live in New Zealand for up to 3 years and bring their families. A new tech visa will allow 250 heavy hitters into residency for those who have worked at a top global tech company on a salary topping $400k. Finally, the doors open to digital nomads as well. 250 people who want to travel and live here for a year while working for an overseas company. That's as long as they've earned more than $20,000 a month over the past half year.
We want the world's best talent to be able to come here to New Zealand and partner with New Zealand's best talent and actually create opportunity for ourselves.
An opportunity for the country, but a potential problem for National's own troubled tax plan. And here's why. National is relying on its foreign home buyers tax to raise $740 million a year to fund its tax cut package. To do that, it thinks it will need to sell 1,700 homes worth more than $2 million to foreigners on an annual basis.
Absolutely confident in our foreign buyer tax numbers and the assumptions that we have behind that.
But independent analysis from economists released yesterday suggests just 700 sales will be achieved every year, leaving a major shortfall. The new tech visa also brings with it residency, meaning those 250 foreigners would not be caught by the tax, as confirmed by National's immigration spokesperson, Erica Stanford.
They will have the ability to buy a house. They'll be treated very differently than foreign buyers.
Asked whether National factored that into their calculations, Christopher Luxon demurred.
We have capped these numbers at quite low levels.
Their plan has so many holes in it, it's got more holes than a block of Swiss cheese.
The tax headache has dragged on now for days, with the party steadfastly refusing to reveal the detailed calculations behind its plan. National's finance spokesperson Nicola Willis came under intense pressure at last night's high-profile finance debate in Queenstown.
Show us the details. If you're so confident...
Show us the details.
Hey, look,
No, seriously, let's do this.
If you're so confident, where are the actual costings?
National wants to end the matter, but it does not want to release those workings. Instead, on TVNZ's Breakfast this morning, Nicola Willis put her job on the line.
If we didn't deliver tax reduction, yes, I would resign, because we are making a commitment to the New Zealand people and we intend to keep it.
I'm going to do it on October the 15th. Watch me.
Still an election to get through before then, and still a month on the campaign to go.
Deputy Political Editor Craig McCulloch there. What do you reckon a decent breakfast costs? A couple of Wheaties, a chug of milk, if you're lucky, a few canned peaches on top? Or maybe you're going high end, so an omelette with all the trimming. What's the numbers? Well, the Pacific People's Ministry is under fire again for alleged extravagant spending, dropping more than 50k on a series of post-budget breakfast functions that, according to National, were anything but budget. National's public service spokesperson, Simeon Brown, says the breakfast events cost about $75 a head, with the Hawke's Bay function costing $110 a pop. So curious as ever, we wanted to know what kind of brekkie you could get for that kind of coin. Ruth Travella, a chef and the owner of the Catering Bell, thinks $75 a head is up there.
If it's a bespoke event and there's, it's a special environment and, lots of trouble has been gone to make it happen, then it's not absolutely crazy. I understand caterers would need to charge that if it's a special occasion, yeah.
So at that price, I mean, you're an experienced caterer. What could you do for that? $75 a head, what would you expect to see on the plate?
Well, it would probably be the full spectrum of breakfast. I mean, you'd expect a hot breakfast, maybe even a chef, cooking some omelettes on the spot, the continental offering with pastries and muffins and then, beautiful drinks as well. I think you'd expect the full spectrum there. Definitely.
Sounding delicious. And would you anticipate that that is a one-off single serve, or could I eat until I almost burst buffet style?
Well, yeah, I think it would probably be more like, eat until you burst, unless it's, a specially designed menu by a top chef who's doing something incredible. It just depends on the event.
Bottomless coffee too, Ruth, at that price?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. I'm liking the sound of this. Now, one of these breakfasts, $110 a head. What could you do with that?
Oh, well, you'd probably want like some beautiful cocktails, some waiters, dressed, in some costumes or looking amazing. I'd probably want some bells and whistles for that price. Yeah.
If you want something that's nice and classy but not too extravagant, because we're talking about a public purse here, right? So we're kind of wanting to pitch at a sensible price point that passes the sniffed test. What do you think is kind of the price point there? Not too extravagant but nice. You want guests to feel special, but you don't want to blow the budget either. What's reasonable?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the type of event and the venue and the brief. But I think for a kind of general standard breakfast with waiter service, I mean, I think, $50 or $60 is probably around the mark.
I know costs have gone up a lot in terms of food. Everybody is feeling that. What would you say about that in terms of, judging a cost per head and thinking, oh, that's quite pricey?
Well, I mean, we all know how much hospitality has suffered over the last few years, and a lot of events are quite sporadic at the moment. People aren't really booking too much. If that caterer can charge that amount and get away with it, then that's great for them. They're just trying to stay afloat. So I would never bag anyone out for doing well. But saying that, the event organiser, the client, if they go in with a budget, then they need to work within their budget. It's up to them to really decide how much they want to pay in the end. There's a lot of offering out there. There's a lot of competition. So you don't have to shop around much to be able to work within your budget.
I understand you have actually catered for a real-life princess.
Yes. It was only club sandwiches and coffee, though. That was for Princess Anne when she was here just recently.
But I imagine, a good club sandwich and a good coffee, you can go far with that, and for a princess too.
Well, yes, she had a very specific brief for her club sandwiches. They had to be non-explosive club sandwiches. So I worked very hard to make them tidy and contained.
Ruth, for an event where you're having, 200 or 300 people, what's the lowest you could go per head and still make it feel sort of special, do you think?
Well, yeah, just in terms of, I work within budgets. I find out what they want to spend per person, and then I go backwards from there.
So let me put it this way, Ruth, if I offered you $30 a head, could you put together a decent breakfast?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, maybe not the full hot spectrum and the continental as well, but yeah, definitely a nice offering that everyone would be happy with, sure.
And then you find out afterwards Beyonce was at the breakfast, you'd still be happy with what you'd served up?
I don't think Beyonce would be wanting to hang out with 200 people for breakfast, would she?
And that is Chef Ruth Travella there. It is 24 minutes after 5. What do you reckon is a reasonable price per head for a breakfast? Let us know your thoughts on that one. 2101 on text or tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai o whakaaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program today. Let us know your thoughts on the bank's plans to crack down on scammers. They're going to have a shared anti-scam centre and also bringing in some other measures to reduce risks to customers. Text us on 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. The email address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. It is time for the headlines now with Evie. Anaya Evie, mena piti kōrero.
Retail banks are joining forces to fight fraudsters who are costing Kiwis $20 million last year, including industry-wide name checking so people can see who they're paying. Massey University Associate Professor Claire Matthews told Checkpoint it's hard to justify banks being held liable if they haven't contributed to the fraud. Nationals promising 3 new visas to attract technology talent to the country. There would be 500 visas for recent graduates from the best universities, 250 residency visas for those who've worked at top global tech firms, and 250 one-year visas for overseas workers earning more than $20,000 a month. Labour leader Chris Hipkins says it's a clickbait policy and doubts it would attract the numbers National claims. The Pacific People's Ministry is being criticised over 4 post-budget breakfast functions that cost nearly $53,000. Pacific People's Minister Barbara Edmonds defends the money, saying people deserve to be involved in the budget process. The Senior Doctors Union says its 5,500 members have voted to strike for 12 hours on October the 2nd and 24 hours on October the 24th. The Association of Salaried Medical Specialists was already set to walk off the job next Thursday in its campaign over better pay and conditions. And Emergency Management Minister Kieran McAnulty says reopening the rail link to Napier Port 7 months after Cyclone Gabrielle is an incredible achievement. At a ceremony this morning beside a rebuilt rail bridge, Mr McAnulty recalled driving past just after the storm and seeing the rail track bent back over itself. Those are the headlines. Looking at traffic in Canterbury, there are reports of a crash north of Mount Cook Aerodrome. That's on State Highway 80. That's all the information we have for you at the moment. Our next traffic news and headlines are at about 20 to 6.
Ngā mihi, Evie. It's Warriors Eve. In just over 24 hours' time, the side will be running out for their first finals match on home soil in 15 years. They'll take on the Newcastle Knights at Mount Smart Stadium tomorrow night in a bid to keep the dream alive. Tickets to the game sold out in a matter of minutes, so Eden Park is opening its gates for the overflow. Delphine Herbert has the story.
Up the wires! Up the wires! It's the catch cry heard all across the land. The team that's ignited a fire in sports fans, daring to dream this could be our year. The tickets for tomorrow night's game sold out in a matter of minutes. Daniel missed out, but he'll still be gathering with friends and whānau to watch.
Finna go out to the boys, have barbecue, watch the game. It feels amazing, you know, I was born in 1995, up the wires.
Rob hopes it'll be the Warriors' night.
To have the boys and to have them home to do it after all that time is awesome. It's good. It's a sellout, and I'm sure we'll smash the Knights. Easy.
For Sir Peter Leach, the Mad Butcher, this is Christmas.
I used to have 3 great loves: my family, my business, and my Warriors. And they're all equal, you know. I love them all as much as I love the other one.
He says the fans have been incredible.
It's like a big family, mate, to be fair. The fans, let's not underestimate some of the wonderful fans. Some people say I'm the greatest Warrior fan. I don't like that. I can feel comfortable with the title, the most well-known fan. I can handle that, but we have so many wonderful fans.
The side will be buoyed by another sold-out crowd at their home of Mount Smart Stadium. There was talk of moving the big match to Eden Park, which has bigger capacity, an idea that was eventually torpedoed. Instead, Eden Park is holding a Wars Under the Stars event for those who missed out on tickets. CEO Nick Sortner is encouraging people to come along with a picnic blanket and enjoy the action.
We knew that there would be huge demand for tickets for the event, and Eden Park is a desire to see more league being played at the park, and we thought this is a great opportunity to get league fans along to our national stadium from 5 o'clock. Free access onto the field of play and to watch the Wars on the big screen.
He is expecting a big turnout.
We think there'll be probably up to 5,000 people come along. Tickets are available through Ticketmaster and they're free of charge. So we're just encouraging people to register. So it assists us with our food and beverage preparation, obviously security and catering and cleaning.
Meanwhile, across the ditch, Channel 9 chief commentator Matthew Thompson says Knights and Warriors fans have been excited for weeks.
After last week's round of finals, it would be impossible if you're a footy fan not to be pumped up. It was amazing footy across the weekend, and obviously the stakes are high from now on in. Elimination finals, and the Warriors, having finished in the top 4 for the first time in a long time, will be hoping to go through to a grand final qualifiers.
He expects it to be a close game when the sides kick off at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. Wow, can you feel the excitement? Warriors CEO Cameron George joins us now. Hi, Cameron.
Good afternoon, Lisa.
How does it feel to be part of the most popular sports team in the country right now?
Look, it's awesome. I'm just so happy for the fans and the people in New Zealand. They get to enjoy this ride that we're on. It's all for them. Our boys have worked extremely hard on the field, and our staff off the field have done a great job. And it's just great for the people in New Zealand and our fans right around the country and offshore.
Why do you think your fans are so dedicated, and what has made the Warriors sports sweethearts?
Look, I just think that we're a great sport to watch and play and be a part of, and the atmosphere at our games is electric, and our game day experience is like it's not like any other sport in New Zealand. So we really put a lot of effort into that, and people love coming along and enjoying themselves, and we're very community minded, and we engage a lot with the community. So that's around New Zealand, and we do our best there. So we're just a great club to be a part of, and really proud for our fans that our boys have got to this stage.
Have you got a teeny tiny little knot in your stomach?
Yeah, I'm anxious. I'm ready to go. Look, so much work and effort goes into a footy club, and it's not only on the field, it's off the field too. And we've got so many good staff behind the scenes to do a great job, and it's so hard to get to this point. So when you get there, you feel excited, you feel anxious, and you just want to win. And that's exactly what we want tomorrow night.
So how big a deal is this game going to be tomorrow?
I think it's our biggest in the history of our footy club. We haven't been here since 2008 in this situation in New Zealand, and everyone's crying out for us to win. So we're just got to go there and not hesitate and go after it. And it's a big, big day for our footy club tomorrow and the fans of New Zealand Warriors.
Do you feel any weight? Do you feel the weight of the nation? Because people, they've had a long, grumpy winter, right? And they need something to celebrate. They want good news. And no pressure, but they're relying on you.
Yeah, look, we feel the support, absolutely. It's amazing, the support far and wide that we're getting. And our guys know that, they really want us to win. And there's only one way we can win, and that's the team going out there and doing what they've trained hard to do. So, we love the support. We feel the support. We want the support. So now it's up to us to, put a smile on their face with a big win.
How do you reckon you're going to be tomorrow? I mean, how will you watch it? Through closed fists? Or what are you going to be like?
Yeah, I do a lot of pacing. People try and talk to me, and I just shut down. I do like to watch the game because a lot of other people come for a good time, but I actually do love my footy and love to watch every tackle and see how we're doing and what we're doing, and I get right into it. So I do pace a little bit. I like to stand on my own a lot and just watch the game. But anyway, we'll see how we go tomorrow night.
Hey, you've sold out Mount Smart, I think it is 6 times in 10 games. What kind of boost does that give the club?
It's awesome. And that's go back to my original point around our game day experience. We've invested very heavily in both people with the creative ideas and executed really cool plans this year. And people are just coming along and loving it. So it's not just the footy, it's the whole experience. And very proud of that. And it's something that we haven't seen, I think, since 1995, the numbers we're getting. And, just really proud of that. And just so happy our fans get to enjoy it because we've been away for a number of years. So to come back and re-engage has been a really important part of our plan for 2023.
Is there any merch left, Cameron? Can you get your hands on it still?
Unless you're a very small person. All the regular sizes and everything's gone. Like, it's just crazy. Honestly, the numbers we're seeing through merch sales, and not only here in New Zealand but Australia, is just unreal. And it's really difficult, but there's bits and pieces left there. If you're coming into the game tomorrow night, the stadium will have stuff there for sale, so get in quick.
Really good to talk to you and go well tomorrow. That is Cameron George, the Warriors CEO there. 25 minutes away from 6, Kia mau tonu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. Time for the business news. Ko taku hoa e nai ko Nona Peltier. She joins us in the studio. Oh, you can't help but feel excited, eh, Nona?
I'm
the Warriors.
Very excited. Very excited.
Good on you. All right, let's talk about the manufacturing sector. It's contracted for the 6th month in a row. What is happening?
Yeah, it's not very exciting, I can tell you. What we are talking about here is a number that's less than 50. 50 is a standstill number. Anything above is expansion, anything below is contraction, and basically that's a backward number. And in this case, we're talking about 46.1. And that is the lowest number that we've seen since the global financial crisis, excepting, of course, COVID-19, which skewed all sorts of numbers. And the other thing is that it's probably the worst number that we've seen in any of the past recessions. So this is not a good news.
You're not spreading any Friday joy, are you?
Well, the economy is two things. It's goods and it's services. And what we see, especially leading up into this election, a lot of people talking about the bright, rosy future, or maybe not, or all the kind of things you get with the forecasting. These numbers are not forecasts. This is stuff that's actually happening. And what we're seeing is a downturn in the production of the manufacturing sector. Employment numbers are down. New orders are down. And deliveries are down. The only number that's up is finished stocks. That means they're not selling their stuff that's sitting in their inventory. Probably they're making things that no one's actually buying. Now, it's not just the domestic market that's the problem. Internationally, the number is 49. Okay, and that's around when you look around the world. So the United States is at 47.9. That's also a contraction for the manufacturing sector. The Eurozone, 43.5. These are the places where we sell our products. Well, they're not in any better shape than we are. So I guess, in a way, we're in a pretty good place because, we're a little bit better than the Eurozone, right? Well, not necessarily. What we really need is the domestic economy to kind of ramp up a little bit to help out our manufacturing sector. And we're going to hear more about what's going on with the other side of the economy. That's the Performance of Services Index on Monday. And then we'll have a better picture of where we're actually at, not the forecast, but where the economy is sitting right now.
We wait in the brace position. In the meantime, though, could you talk us through the markets, please?
Okay, so a bit more positive in the markets. The NZX Top 50 Index, it rose nearly 1/3%. That was a 34-point gain to 11,348. And the dollar, 59.3 US cents. 92 Australian, and you'll be happy about this, Lisa, 47.7 pence. There you go.
47.7, still not over that hump to 48.
But it's better than it was yesterday.
There's a movement. There's a movement. Thank you, Nona. Ka kite, Nona Peltier there with Business News. One of the sharpest minds and tongues in the broadcast business is signing off from her flagship show. RNZ's Kim Hill has announced she's stepping down from her Saturday morning show after more than 21 years as its presenter. Some of her interviews are absolute legend, asked Judith Collins. Checkpoint's morning report in 9 to noon, she's done them all, talked to thousands of people, and she once said the scar tissue has grown over her wounds from some of the most gruelling encounters, including a vile interview with Jeffrey Archer. Neva Chittick takes a spin through her remarkable RNZ career so far.
Let's just wind this back a bit. Do you take any responsibility for a mood of fear and panic, having collaborated with Jerry Brownlee to suggest that the government is hiding things from the public?
What a ridiculous thing to say. What we're saying is, when we are...
What does transparency mean? When you call for more transparency, Ms. Collins, what does that mean?
She's one of the country's best and most feared interviewers. Today announcing she's bowing out of the Saturday morning slot she's made her own for 2 decades. Kim Hill moved to New Zealand with her family at 15 and began her career with RNZ as a 20-something after studying journalism.
Oh, well, my first job with Radio New Zealand was in Gisborne. And so I probably don't remember it because I was so panic-stricken I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I used to have to read the news as well. And I used to hyperventilate sometimes.
Following a stint on the West Coast and a period overseas, Kim Hill returned to the fold in 1985 as a Checkpoint presenter.
Procreation, job creation and happy families. But will it rub off on the Nats in 1986? In the words of David Longy, change your medication, Margaret.
In the 90s, she moved to 9 to Noon, where she had one of her most well-known interviews with Monica Lewinsky about her affair with then US President Bill Clinton.
I want to be frank here. I mean, the book talks about you honouring your sexuality. You are an open person, an honest person, an upfront person. Mm-hmm. You performed fellatio on President Clinton the same day you exchanged your first words with him. In retrospect, was that a smart thing to do?
In 2002, Kim Hill shifted into the Saturday morning slot, appointment listing, a slot she's owned and won several awards in.
For heaven's sake, why is it that every time I quote you to yourself, you act surprised and then repeat it?
This is a kind of a riddle I don't understand, Kim.
And you went to parties at Studio 54 and the lines of cocaine and models and blah. You never took cocaine?
No, I never took cocaine.
Why would you not?
But when the calls come, Kim's also stepped in on Morning Report.
I did a Donald Trump just then. I was just, when Tim Shabbat was talking about doing the media, I said, media slut, but the slut came out on air. Yes. Tim would understand.
Now, Kim, the latest word on this has the baby due on April 25th.
Anzac Day.
Indeed.
They're going to call it Biscuit.
Pot calling the kettle black, guys, says Steve from Hamilton.
Well, I'm not a pot. I don't know about you, Guy. Nothing pottish about me.
No, I've never said that about you, Kim, actually.
No. Somebody else says, please stop putting made-up inflections on listeners' texts.
She says she's always enjoyed the intimacy radio offers.
You don't have to worry about what you look like. You don't have to worry about fidgeting. I fidget a lot. It's really excellent just to be able to concentrate on somebody's voice without all the extraneous clobber, which is, you know, another reason why I am sitting here before you in my dressing gown.
Kim says stepping down from Saturday morning was a hard call because she's loved presenting the show. But there are other things she wants to spend her time doing.
I don't know, you know. I mean, grandbabies, they're quite tempting to spend more time with. I'd like to learn to play the cello. Don't know what my chances of that are. You can't, you know, do Wordle more than once a day, so I'll have to find something to do, won't I?
Kim Hill will be back in the new year working on a series of in-depth interviews. The final Saturday morning with Kim Hill will be on November 25th.
Fat Boy Slim, right here, right now.
Are you going to come?
I'd like to.
Excellent.
I'm very old. Was the oldest person that you've ever had in your audience?
A guy on Saturday night came up to me and it was his 80th birthday.
Oh, I'm younger than that, mate.
Well, I know spring chicken.
How
so
old
if
are
I can
you?
do it, I'm 59.
I'm older than that.
Right. Well, listen.
It's all in the mind, however. Yes, I would like to come.
One of my greatest disappointments, apparently she didn't go to a rave with Fatboy Slim. Oh, Kim. It is 13 minutes away from 5 and from 6 rather, and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai or whakaaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program tonight. Don't forget you can get in touch via text 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or send us an email. The address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Evie's here with the headlines. Ko Evie anō tēnei.
The Senior Doctors Union has hit back at the Whatu Order's accusation that it's escalating strike action without letting its members know the details of its current pay offer. More than 5,000 members of the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists will strike for 12 hours on October the 2nd and 24 hours on October the 24th. Union leader Sarah Dalton says the Whatu Order's offer amounts to less than inflation. Pollen experts predict a worse than usual hay fever season, with the El Niño weather system expected to jumpstart pollen production in plants that have soaked up months of rain. Met Service pollen forecaster David Fountain says it will be harder for people to avoid allergens and pollen will spread faster and be more plentiful. The Libyan Red Crescent says the death toll in the flooded city of Derna has risen to 11,000, with about 30,000 people left homeless. The United Auto Workers Union has launched simultaneous strikes at 3 factories owned by General Motors, Ford and Chrysler parent Stellantis, kicking off the most ambitious US industrial labour action in decades. The walkouts at the Detroit 3 will halt production of the Ford Bronco, Jeep Wrangler and Chevrolet Colorado pickup truck, along with other popular models. And broadcaster Kim Hill says leaving RNZ National's Saturday morning's show after 21 years is going to be a huge change, but it's the right time. Her final Saturday morning show will be on November the 25th, but she'll continue working on new projects at RNZ next year. Okay, traffic news. In Canterbury, there are still reports of a crash north of Mount Cook Aerodrome on State Highway 80, but unfortunately we still don't have any further information for you. And our next news and weather is at 6 o'clock.
Ngā mihi, Evie. An Australian woman who sent her pet ferret's ashes to New Zealand to have them made into jewellery is now offering a reward for their safe return. Both the memorial ring and the remaining ashes were lost in the post, and the ferret's owner has spent the last 3 months trying to track them down. But neither Australia nor New Zealand Post know where they've gone. Tom Taylor reports.
Melissa Burton's 5 ferrets, Heartspark, Delilah, Koshik, Karcher and Kitbus weren't just pets, they were family. She's aware of how strange that might sound to New Zealanders who'd consider them pests, but says in her hometown they're a popular companion animal.
They're pretty big pets over here in Perth, actually. There is a ferret society. They hold ferret races. So they've got little trophies and things at home for winning different categories. They used to have costume contests for the ferrets. You know, they're really treated just like cats and dogs.
The ferrets each passed away over the last 10 years, and when the final one died in March, Melissa decided to have all of their ashes turned into a piece of memorial jewellery. She wanted a ring with flecks of ashes displayed in it, but says she couldn't find any Australian jewellers that fit the bill. Eventually, she landed on a jeweller in Auckland and sent the ferret's ashes over.
They set the ashes in resin. The ring itself was gold, and with the resin, we selected some red and pink tones because those were the colour of all of the ferret's harnesses, so it was kind of their colours.
The jeweller completed the work in the middle of June and sent the ring and remaining ashes back through NZ Post. Australia Post told Melissa the parcel had arrived in Perth just 3 days later. But 3 months later, she's yet to see it.
Both companies are blaming each other and not really taking any responsibility for this. New Zealand Post say it's arrived in Australia, so it's Australia Post's responsibility now. And Australia Post say they've never actually received it from New Zealand, so it's still New Zealand Post's responsibility.
After much back and forth, NZ Post told Melissa they'd asked Australia Post to investigate. Finally, at the end of August, NZ Post said their efforts had been unsuccessful and the parcel had been deemed missing.
It's honestly just been like grieving them all over again. There's been lots of lost sleep, lots of anxiety and panic. It's just been a really rough few months.
Melissa's now offering a $250 reward for anyone who can help to bring her ferret's remains home. Emily Lake, a glass artist based in Nelson, has been making memorial jewellery for the last 15 years and says it grows in popularity each year. While she's not the jeweller Melissa used, she sympathises with her loss.
When you're struggling with grief, it is nice to have a small part of your loved one with you. It's not for everybody, I know that, but for those who do wish it, it does bring an immense sense of connectedness with your dearly departed.
Emily says sending ashes by post is fraught with difficulty and advises people to check the requirements carefully. In a statement, an NZ Post spokesperson acknowledged the distressing situation but said they hadn't been able to work out what happened to Melissa's parcel. They added that sending human or pet remains through their tracked economy service is prohibited, with exemptions only for some business customers like the Funeral Directors Association. Although the item did not meet their terms and conditions, NZ Post had provided compensation due to the distress caused. An Australia Post spokesperson said they had worked closely with Melissa throughout the investigation and apologised for the upsetting experience.
All right, let's get to some of your feedback. A bit of it coming in on Kim Hill stepping down from Saturday mornings. This person says, "Oh, rats, I'll miss Kim on Saturday mornings. The vast intellect, her pronunciation of films." Evie, help me out. How does she say it?
It's always film.
Film.
Yeah, film.
Film. And her acerbic but good-natured clapbacks to critical texters to her show. A true New Zealand media legend, says Mike. Another listener says, "I have the utmost respect and admiration for Kim Hill. She treated viewers as grown-ups, never engaged in cheap, clickbaity sensationalism. I was gutted to hear she's stepping down. I hope her new path gives her lots of joyous challenges." That from Frank in Upper Hutt. Thanks for getting in touch. 2101 on text or tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. The hay fever season is approaching and experts say it could be worse than usual. El Niño is expected to kick pollen production into overdrive. Felix Walton has more.
For many New Zealanders, hay fever is a minor annoyance.
Usually like itchy eyes and can't stop sneezing.
Itchy eyes, runny nose.
Itchy throat and runny eyes. Sniffles maybe.
You know, it could be worse. It's only hay fever in the end.
But for some, Allergy NZ Chief Executive Mark Dixon says it can be debilitating.
They struggle to get out of bed. The pain in their sinuses at the front of their forehead and high in their nasal cavity is there's so much pressure there that they can't go to work.
Countries like Australia and Japan use sensors to broadcast up-to-date measures of pollen in the air. New Zealand doesn't. David Fountain is the pollen forecaster for Met Service. He lives in a small house on the outskirts of Palmerston North, surrounded by plants and trees.
You'd think I'd have good scientific equipment available to do that, but I use phenology, which is old-fashioned observation, and it's knowledge based on 40-plus years of watching plants.
Dr. Fountain is confident his method is accurate. He says it's been refined over decades.
I am surrounded by plants that I watch. Pine is a good example of what I can predict. Pine started here where I am at the very end of July. I could see this visually. Up north it was a week or so earlier, and down south I've got people down there who report to me.
It's been a wet year for New Zealand, but the El Niño system is expected to bring hot and dry weather. Dr. Fountain expects the change in temperature to jump-start the pollen season.
The El Niño situation, warmer and drier in the east and a lot of wind, will bring an enhanced pollen season. It's likely to be accelerated and higher.
Other experts are asking the government to invest in more accurate pollen sensors. Victoria University Professor Rewi Newnham says New Zealand is behind the times.
Pollen sensing or monitoring, measuring the pollen in the air, that's something that happens routinely in many parts of the world, in Europe and in North America and Japan and Australia. But we just haven't really, for whatever reason, had the capacity or the wherewithal to do it in New Zealand.
University of Auckland researcher Amy Chan says sensors in Australia are gathering valuable data.
The Brisbane pollen sensor was able to show that the amount of pollen they were getting was triple the amount they were getting like a decade ago. So that is some of the data that we would want to know for New Zealand.
Dr. Chan also works as a pharmacist in New Lynn. She says the demand for antihistamines and other allergy medications are keeping her busy.
With increasing winter pressures and post-COVID and the pressures on pharmacies, the workforce we need to meet the demand isn't sufficient. We've seen quite a few pharmacies close down as well. So that's putting a lot of pressure on the pharmacy profession.
Amy Chan says hay fever sufferers should start taking medication early to boost their protection. She also recommends wearing a mask outdoors to block pollen and other allergens.
It is 7 minutes away from 6. Kia amo tonu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. A Blenheim granddad who refuses to fly to help save the planet has spent 3 days hitchhiking up the islands to Auckland to meet his first grandchild. 78-year-old Bill McEwen has sworn off flying because of its high emissions. And while he could have taken a train part of the way, he wanted to make a statement with his trip, something he believes is even more important since his granddaughter Rocco arrived. Climate activist Bill McEwen is with us now. Hi, Bill.
Hello, Lisa.
First off, most importantly, how's the granddaughter?
How's what?
How's your granddaughter?
Oh, she's wonderful. I'm as doting as any other granddad about her.
Fantastic. Now, tell me about choosing to use your thumb to get up the islands to visit her. Why did you do that?
Why did I do that? Well, two aspects of that. First of all, out of self-interest. Lisa, I didn't want to be a grumpy old man because I've seen older men who are feeling passionately about stuff and actually don't do anything about it. And they became kind of disaffected and a little bit depressed and grumpy old men. And I decided I wouldn't be a grumpy old man. I'd put my money where my mouth is. And the second reason is to do with altruism, really. I think people at my stage of life, in the afternoon of life, really, it's one of our responsibilities and pleasures to be there for those in the morning of their lives and for the children. And so I wanted to be, there for my grandchild, not just visiting her, but thinking long term, Lisa, about the consequences of what we're doing to the planet through our emissions and our economic activity, and changing it indelibly for her and those of her generation.
So how did you go getting rides?
Pretty good. I didn't wear a hat, so someone picked me up at one stage and said, I picked you up because I could see that you were older, and I presumed that I was kind of defenceless and decrepit. So I got rides from good people. Like it's only good people and kind people who will pick up a hitchhiker. And, you know, these days with COVID, etc., people are really reluctant. I did very well. I didn't stand for longer than quarter of an hour at any time, and I chose the weather window where the weather was good. So I got a lot of generosity, and people went right out of their way. One couple 50 kilometres out of their way. Another man changed his trip from Hamilton to Rotorua to Hamilton to Horowhenua for me. So I did very well.
That's fantastic, Bill. And while you were on this journey, did you get a bit of a chance to spread the word, to chat to people about the climate and what you were doing and what they might be able to do?
I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm not really into proselytising, but I am very keen to listen to people and what they value. So I did a lot of listening, and through that listening, I got to hear what concerned them a lot. And then I was able to talk about what concerned me. So I was pretty soft sell, Lisa. I'm not a hard driving person. I'm a person who likes to think about things a lot and come at things gently, and often by listening, whakarongo, because there seems to be so little of it these days, to be able to listen to each other carefully.
Would you do it again, Bill, or is the train the top of your list for the next visit?
Well, this wasn't the first time I've done the trip, Lisa. I went up when Geraldine was pregnant also, so I'm not accustomed to this. I'm unaccustomed to it.
Yeah. So it takes a lot longer to get where you're going, right, Bill? So were you knackered at the end of it?
Tired?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am tired. Lois flew up on air points. Took her 4 hours from house to house. And it took me 2.5 days. But But that wasn't the point. It's symbolic, really, Lisa, about
Understand.
This whole myth of growth, which is a craziness, which is doing our planet in. And I really wanted to make a statement. I could have taken the bus or the train, and I came back. When there was the big moon, walking through Blenheim on that morning, and the moon was setting and the sun was coming up. I felt stuffed, actually, but I felt happy that I'd actually done something that was consistent with what I believe in.
Amazing to talk to you, Bill. Thank you so much for your time and happy future journeys. That is Bill McEwen. He's a climate activist. He took the long route to see his granddaughter hitchhiking up the islands out of principle because he'd like to just, gently spread the word about looking after the planet. Pretty remarkable, really. A lot of you getting in touch about the banks. Here's a few of your thoughts. It has to be done by the banks to further meet their duty to look after people's money. If they don't do it, they are blaming the victims for having negligently vulnerable systems and controls. The banks would sort out the scamming problems a lot faster if it was their profits being pilfered, says this person. They only care about customers in terms of their own obscene profits, which mostly go to Australia. That's from Kevin. Another listener wants to know why we are not trying to track down the scammers themselves. I assume that's part of what this new anti-scam centre is that they're all setting up. Another says they aren't showing apathy, the banks, they're showing indifference.
RNZ News at 6 o'clock. Paul Mardier ko Evie Ashton, tēnei. Senior doctors and hospital dentists' strikes are set to continue next month as pay talks with Te Whatu Ora stall. The Association of Salaried Medical Specialists says its 5,500 members voted overwhelmingly to strike for 12 hours on October the 2nd and for 24 hours on October the 24th. The association's executive director, Sarah Dalton, says members want inflation-adjusted salaries, as many are leaving public health for overseas posts or for private practice.
They suggested a 17-month settlement most recently, but without funding those extra 5 months. So they're effectively asking the doctors to take an inflation adjustment for part of that time and then a zero adjustment for the remainder, which means all up the total package is another real terms pay cut.
Te Whatu Ora's chief executive, Margie Upper, is urging the union to let members judge for themselves the offer, which includes pay rises of 7 to 12.9%. However, Sarah Dalton says the offer amounts to less than 5%. Labour Party leader Chris Hipkins says Act's plan to reduce the number of people receiving benefits would make the country a less safe place. The Act Party says it will take a more active approach to ensuring people on a benefit due to illness or drug addiction are getting treatment. It says people who don't get treatment could lose their eligibility for a benefit. Mr Hipkins says the policy isn't evidence-based.
The fundamental question they need to ask is where are those people going to go? They're going to end up living in cars on the streets and potentially be more of a risk to the public safety of everybody else.
Chris Hipkins says the Labour government has been getting record numbers of people off benefits and into jobs. The number of people who have died in flooding in Libya has risen to 11,000. Rick Brennan, the World Health Organisation's emergency director for the Eastern Mediterranean region, says the damage is more widespread than first thought.
It wasn't just the city of Derna that was affected. A whole area across northern Libya with a number of large towns was impacted. The UN now is estimating around 880,000 people probably need some form of assistance. We won't be able to support all of them, but probably close to around 500,000. And of course, the biggest needs are in the city of Derna.
The Libyan Red Crescent says the number of dead is expected to grow. Napier Port has welcomed the restoration of the train line between Napier and Hastings. The connection was damaged badly during Cyclone Gabrielle, meaning goods normally transported by train were taken by road. The cargo could be anything from food products like chilled and frozen meat to logs, wood pulp, timber and machinery. The port's chief executive, Todd Dawson, says it was an adjustment for their customers.
That's meant quite a bit of change for some of the customers in terms of what they had to adapt to, particularly for time-sensitive cargoes.
A permanent bridge will be designed and built over the next couple of years, but for now, scheduled freight services will resume on Monday. US prosecutors claim President Biden's son didn't tell the truth about his drug use and addiction when buying a gun. Hunter Biden has been criminally charged with 3 counts of lying when buying a firearm in 2018. Joe Moreno, a former US federal prosecutor, says the special counsel had to make a decision on whether or not to indict Mr. Biden this month.
David Weiss had a 5-year, what we call statute of limitations, in order to bring these charges. And that 5 years was about to lapse at the end of this month. So at that point, he had no choice but to either bring the charges or drop them entirely and lose the ability to bring them. So I think the cynical view is that he was backed in a corner and had no choice. But the matter is, he has brought them now and they are serious.
If convicted, Hunter Biden could face up to 25 years in jail. The new operator of some of Auckland's major ferry routes says it's committed to delivering a reliable service for commuters. Explore Group are set to operate some recently cancelled services around the Waitemata Harbour after contracts were dropped by the previous operator, Fuller's 360. From October, Explore will take over the Bayswater and Birkenhead Te Aotearoa Northcote Point ferry routes. Managing Director William Goodfellow says they're up for the task.
You know, with whatever we do, we always try and do it the right way, and we think we're putting in the right gear that's going to give us a really robust, reliable service, and we're certainly committed to seeing that through.
William Goodfellow says they hope to increase their ferry services in future. Kim Hill says it was a hard decision to leave a job she loves, but it's time to step away from the microphone. The veteran RNZ national broadcaster has announced she'll step down from her Saturday morning show after 21 years in the role. Kim Hill says she's ready to take a break and her final Saturday morning program will be on November the 25th. She says she'd like to spend some time with her grandchildren and perhaps learn the cello. But she'll return to RNZ next year to work on a new project, a series of in-depth interviews. And Auckland's Eden Park is opening its doors to fans who missed out on tickets to the highly anticipated Warriors match tomorrow night. They'll take on the hottest team in the NRL, Australia's Newcastle Knights, on home soil for the first final match in 15 years. Eden Park is holding a Wars Under the Stars event for those who didn't nab a seat in time. CEO Nick Sauntner is encouraging people to come out and celebrate.
We knew that there would be huge demand for tickets for the event, and Eden Park has a desire to see more league being played at the park, and we thought this was a great opportunity to get league fans along to our national stadium from 5 o'clock, free access onto the field of play and to watch the Wars on the big screen.
Koina ngā pizza kōrero.
This week on Music 101, Ruben Nielsen from Unknown Mortal Orchestra talks family, health and his new lifestyle for touring.
I think last night.
Kristen Hirsch opens up to new inspiration and introduces us to her new album. And we celebrate Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori with beautiful waiata, and Te Kuru Jews is my guest on the mixtape picking his favourite waiata. Music 101, this Saturday from 1 p.m. with me, Charlotte Ryan, here on RNZ National.
And we're funded through New Zealand On Air. Nā te irirangi te motu te putea tautoko. Now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Saturday. For all of Te Ika Maui, the North Island, apart from Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, and including Marlborough, isolated showers clearing this evening, mainly fine tomorrow, but cloud increasing in western areas. Northwesterlies rising to gale in Wellington and Marlborough tomorrow evening. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, showers, some heavy with thunderstorms possible, clearing this evening, fine tomorrow. Nelson and Buller, cloudy periods, isolated showers, clearing to mainly fine tonight. However, showers developing in Buller tomorrow afternoon. Westland and Fiordland, mainly fine today. Rain spreading north tomorrow, heavy in the ranges. Mainly fine for Canterbury, high cloud increasing tomorrow. Northwesterlies rising to severe gale in exposed places tomorrow. Southland and Otago. Remaining showers clearing this afternoon and becoming fine. Cloud increasing tomorrow and showers returning in the evening. And for Kohu, Chatham Islands, showers clearing tomorrow. It is 8 minutes past 6. I'll have news headlines for you at 6:30.
Kia ora rā e ho, no mai hoki mai, this is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. The All Blacks are back in World Cup action tomorrow morning against Namibia. The team is desperate to prove they've learnt the lessons from their last two heavy defeats and want to restore their fans' faith in the side after a stuttering start to the showpiece tournament. Rugby reporter Joe Porter has more.
And that is it. First blood goes to the host nation, France.
The French were too good for the All Blacks last weekend, and while the New Zealanders are expected to bounce back against Namibia tomorrow in Toulouse, plenty of question marks remain about their title chances. Loose forward Luke Jacobson says they've been working hard to address the deficiencies in their game that were exposed in Paris.
Last week there was probably a few areas that be cleaned up on, and particularly around the breakdown and a little bit around discipline. Far too many penalties. Makes it pretty tough to play rugby when you're conceding that many penalties. So that's probably number one.
The All Blacks conceded 12 penalties in the loss to France, 3 times as many as the hosts, and Ford's coach Jason Ryan says that can't happen again, with red and yellow cards set to play a large role at the World Cup.
If you look at the common themes, it's discipline, set-piece pressure and kicking. And I think we learnt a couple of valuable lessons in all of those areas, to be honest, and it's something that we will polish up on.
While the All Blacks are focused on fixing their own problems, assistant coach Scott McLeod says they would be foolish to underestimate Namibia.
First thought for me was 2019, it was 24-9 at half-time, and they played really well and they're really physical and direct, and we expect much of the same. And if you look at the type of people they are and where they've come from, mainly a farming background, we know we're going to expect a really physical battle.
And there will be some players battling for spots in the first-choice All Blacks team tomorrow morning, with McLeod suggesting some starting positions could be up for grabs following the side's recent subpar performances.
The World Cup's about a whole squad, and we've got to give opportunity for people to prove themselves. As it's been recognised, the last 2 results haven't been the way we wanted them to go, so we're giving people an opportunity to put their hand up.
While plenty of All Blacks fans will put their hands up to watch tomorrow morning's game, the matches of the round come later, with Ireland facing Tonga on Sunday before the Wallabies take on Fiji on Monday.
The rail connection between Napier and Hastings has been restored after it was badly damaged 7 months ago in Cyclone Gabrielle. A new temporary rail bridge will allow freight to travel to and from the Napier port for the first time since the cyclone. The works also included rebuilding 2-metre-high embankments, replacing 140 metres of rail and laying 3,000 cubic metres of rock foundations under the tracks. Our reporter Kate Green was there for the opening.
The first train in 7 months rolls across the rail bridge to the sound of bagpipes. Lead Cyclone Recovery Minister for Hawke's Bay, Kieran McAnulty, says it's a huge milestone in the region's recovery.
What people want to see is progress, and they have seen the bridge inch towards the other side, and today it's open. And I think for the locals to see that they have now got trains going back to the port, it's quite symbolic. It shows the rest of the country and the world that Hawke's Bay is open for business.
The cyclone did major damage, washing away tracks and embankments near Awatoto. Bits of the old bridge lie half buried in the riverbed below the new one. The supports known as piers were washed out from under it, each weighing up to 80 tonnes and anchored 10 metres down into the riverbed. The new piers go down 30 metres. Local iwi chair Baden Barber of Ngāti Kahungunu says the railway line is an important link for the region's economy.
You know, there's a big mahi that's been done over the last 6 months, 7 months. We know the impact that it's had, and when we drive past here on the road, we always look to the right to see what's been going on, and the progress of this bridge over the last 7 months has been pretty fantastic.
Napier Port Chief Executive Todd Dawson says it's a relief to have the freight line fully reconnected. While the railway was down, freight travelled by road. That could be anything from food products like chilled and frozen meat to logs, wood pulp, timber and machinery.
That's meant quite a bit of change for some of the customers in terms of what they've had to adapt to, particularly for time-sensitive cargoes.
KiwiRail Chief Executive Peter Reedy says this made it a top priority for KiwiRail.
So it's a critical supply chain infrastructure connection, and also, we could get onto this fairly quickly, whereas, other parts of the cyclone damage needs a lot more engineering.
A permanent bridge will be designed and built over the next couple of years. But now, with the first ceremonial train crossing out of the way, scheduled freight services will resume on Monday.
It's very good news, according to Auckland Transport. It's announced tourism operator Explore Group will take over the North Shore routes abandoned by the previous ferry operator Fuller's. So that's Bayswater and Birkenhead to Oniwa Northcote Point from October 1st. Explore Group already operates ferries in the Bay of Islands and Hauraki Gulf and is bringing a modified ferry from Australia to run the North Shore routes. In the meantime, it will use a stand-in vessel. Auckland Transport's Stacey Vanderputten is guaranteeing the service will be reliable.
I remember when we talked those weeks ago, it was a conversation that wasn't so happy at the time. And so we're very, very grateful that we've managed to get to this point and that we'll be able to have that consistency of services to those customers.
What is that service going to look like? What's the timetable going to look like?
Well, the timetable will be looking very similar to what's published at the moment. So that's between over 30 to 34 services a day, depending on the day, and on the weekends it'll be 10 or 12. Ideally, what we would like to do is obviously further progress that timetable back up, but that will be dependent in terms of demand and actually the fleet requirements with it.
So Explore Group, that is, well, it's a tourism adventure operator. Do they have the ferry for the job?
Yes, they have. I mean, they've got some ferries here, obviously, but they are bringing one in purposefully for this as well. It's currently having some refits done to that in order for it to be able to come here. So in the interim, they'll be using their existing fleet they have, which are passenger ferries, very similar to the ones you see around the harbour currently.
And in terms of costs, is this costing about the same as the previous contract? Will passengers notice any difference in price?
No, I mean, fares will stay exactly the same as they're paying today. They'll be paying after commencement. So in terms of it fits within our funding envelope, so it's comparable to what we're already operating.
Comparable, but not the same?
Comparable to cost. So when we talk about what it costs for us to operate the service today, is it going to be the same? Yes, it's very similar. It's within the same funding envelope. So that's why we've been able to do it. And we're really lucky, given the time frame, that we've been able to make that happen.
So I'm wondering, this is a new service provider, and the reason that the old company had to discontinue these was because they didn't have enough staff and couldn't get the people. So this is an additional service for this company, Explore Group. Where are their staff coming from, and are you convinced that they've got the people?
Yeah, that's a good question, and look, I've asked exactly that myself, and yes, they've confirmed they've got the staff to be able to operate and have some resilience with that too, which is great. It's important to note that our previous operator, Fuller's, they were on a short-term contract in terms of that, so it is important in terms of the scheme of things to put that into some consideration, and obviously trying to get something in very quickly has been a real challenge for the team, but we're really grateful that Explorer have been working with us on that very tight time frame to make that happen. And look, they're excited to be part of the network. They see this as a great opportunity for them to extend their business, and they're really looking forward to providing that quality service to Aucklanders.
So Stacey, can you guarantee ferry commuters consistency with this new service?
Yeah, absolutely I can. I'm very confident of that. And I mean, it would be great for the community to get that consistency. That would then obviously drive that demand for the service, and that will improve the rationale for us obviously improving that timetable. That's what we want to do, provide more services. But yes, we're very, very confident that we'll have a good, reliable service there.
So what kind of performance targets will they be held to?
Oh, well, look, I mean, they'll be held to very similar performance standards as the others, albeit, I mean, obviously it's a balancing equation in terms of that. You do have weather events, they're all taken into consideration, but we'll be looking for reliability within the high 90s.
Okay, and what happens if they don't meet that target?
Look, there is a performance regime with the contract as well, as there are with all our contracts, so there is a process to follow for that with performance in mind.
So do they get, fined in essence if they don't meet those targets, this operator?
I wouldn't call them fines. It's more like a performance regime where there is penalties for obviously non-performance. Of course, I wouldn't want to call them fines. Yeah, you obviously don't get paid for services you don't deliver.
They are starting up from October the 1st, and you are wanting to encourage people out of their cars and to use the ferries. There's been a bit of stop-start and very unreliable service here. What can people expect in terms of the longevity of this company and this service? How long are they contracted for, and are they going to stick around? Is the service going to stick around?
Yes, Lisa, the service is definitely going to stick around. Look, we only have Explore as confirmed for up until June 2025. The purpose for that is we do need to go to market to procure the service for the longer term.
And that's Stacey van der Putten from Auckland Transport there. It is 18 minutes after 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. A bit of your feedback. Some of you getting in touch about our interview with Bill McEwen, 78 years old from Blenheim, hitchhiked to meet his first granddaughter up in Auckland because he didn't want to fly because of the emissions. This person says, Bill, what an utter legend and an example to young and old alike. Hearing his carefully considered and thoughtfully delivered environmental advocacy has made my day. And another listener says, how wonderful to hear Bill's story. A humble, everyday hero, an example for us all, and Grandad of the Year. Do keep your feedback coming, 2101 on text. It's nearly a week since an earthquake struck Morocco, killing nearly 3,000 people and leaving many more people homeless. Stories of bravery and acts of kindness are now emerging, none more so than that of Halima Oulami, whose charity is organising helicopters to rescue injured people from inaccessible villages in the Atlas Mountains, the epicentre of the quake. The BBC's Richard Hamilton reports.
A helicopter lands in Marrakesh, where medics transfer a badly injured woman into an ambulance. The operation is the brainchild of Halima Oulami, the president of the El Aman Association. She originally set up the charity 20 years ago to protect women in the region from domestic violence. She herself was visiting one of the remote villages in Al Haouz province when the earthquake struck and had to be airlifted to safety. That experience inspired her to do the same for others.
Nous avons loué des hélicoptères privés pour amener les blessés.
We've hired private helicopters to take the wounded from their villages because they're very far away and there is no access to them. We really couldn't find any other solution. So we've brought the injured people over here to Marrakesh to get them to hospital where they're being treated. We're looking for accommodation for them and are considering how we can eventually get them back to their villages with all they need, like mattresses, etc., for the winter. Because already winter is coming. These villages are cut off at the moment, and in the winter they will be closed.
So far, Halima's charity has hired 7 helicopters and they've managed to rescue 25 people in 5 villages in the province. They're targeting 12 more. They're also putting up tents for women and children in a private garden in Marrakesh. But time is not on their side. Even now, the nights in the mountains are very cold.
In Australia, with polling showing the Yes campaign for the proposed Indigenous voice to Parliament is losing support around the country, the opposition is renewing its call for more information about what the vote will achieve. The referendum will be held on October the 14th. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese joined with former AFL legend Michael Long to clarify how the Parliamentary Advisory Group will operate. The ABC's Flint Duxfield reports.
On the streets of Marylands in Western Sydney, volunteers and campaigners supporting the Voice referendum are out in force.
Voice! Yes! Voice! Yes! Voice! Yes!
This event is just one of dozens taking place across Australia on any given day. Chantel Ogilvie-Ellis is a co-lead organiser with the Sydney Alliance, a broad coalition of groups supporting the Yes campaign.
We've got folks from churches, mosques, synagogues, community organisations and trade unions out in their local areas in the suburbs talking to people about voting yes on the 14th of October.
While some are receptive to the message the volunteers are sharing, others need more convincing.
What I'm saying, about equal rights, there were Chinese immigration in the 20s and they struggled as well to to live here and we don't give them more rights right? They're all equal
While Chantel Ogilvie-Ellis acknowledges some people are confused about exactly what the referendum is all about, she says after a chat with a campaigner, they are more receptive. But it's clear some people are still struggling to understand what the referendum will actually achieve. Do you feel like you have enough information about what the referendum is about?
That's the problem. I don't have. I just heard that if you vote yes, they have the power, they have something, they can say no. Is it correct?
It's this question of whether people actually understand what the voice would do that is causing headaches for the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Today, he tried to clarify with this explanation.
An advisory committee. That's what the voice is, whose only power is the power of its ideas. If they're good ideas, they'll be accepted. If they're not good ideas, they won't be.
He appeared alongside former AFL legend Michael Long, who just finished a 650-kilometre walk from Melbourne in support of The Voice.
This is not about rage, it's about love. It's about giving Indigenous people power over their destiny.
It's the second time in nearly 20 years Michael Long has made the journey on foot to Canberra. In 2004, he sat down with then Prime Minister John Howard asking for change.
In the 19 years since that meeting, the gap between non-Indigenous and Indigenous Australians has not closed. In some areas, it's widened. A yes vote in the referendum on the voice to Parliament will give Indigenous people the self-determination that we asked for all those years ago.
The Prime Minister's moves to clarify what the voice will mean have been met with more questions from his political opponents. Deputy Liberal leader Susan Lee, while stressing her party is not running the No campaign, is today repeating calls for more information about the voice.
Australians need explanations. They're not getting that. And, this is running off the rails, and the Prime Minister is yet to show the leadership that we need.
In Libya, the death toll from flooding in the country's east has risen dramatically, with more than 11,000 people feared to have lost their lives. Entire families remain missing and are feared dead, either buried in debris or washed out to sea. Questions are being asked about the management of 2 dams near the city of Derna that collapsed, and grieving survivors are pointing the finger at the nation's leadership. ABC correspondent Noor Haidar reports.
In the flood-ravaged city of Derna, rescue workers emerge from the rubble of a collapsed building, carrying yet another lifeless body. It's been days since Storm Daniel made landfall in Libya. The heavy rain collapsed 2 dams, sending water gushing downstream into the port city. Aid has begun to trickle in. NGO worker Mohammed Fathi drove 300 kilometres from Benghazi to deliver donated supplies, including food, blankets and baby formula.
This is the first group, and God willing, the second group is coming. I encourage everyone to take part, even though the roads are closed and difficult to reach.
In nearby Tobruk, which was spared the worst of the storm, Inasmi Zaini still hasn't heard from her relatives.
Most of them, we don't know whether they are alive, whether they are under the rubble, whether they were buried.
The Red Crescent has told the BBC that 2,000 bodies remain at sea. Inasmi Zaini says the country desperately needs help searching for survivors and retrieving the dead.
Some have rescue teams. We need help. We need help. We are not trained enough.
Politicians from both sides of the divided nation are calling for an investigation into the disaster. The World Meteorological Organization says the tragedy could have been avoided if the country had a functioning weather service capable of issuing warnings.
The French supermarket Carrefour has put warning labels on products that are guilty of so-called shrinkflation. This is when an item has become smaller in size, but the cost has gone up. The supermarket says the labels are to help shoppers, but that the move is also intended to pressure suppliers like Unilever and Nestlé to rethink their pricing. The BBC's Hugh Schofield reports from Paris.
In these times of very high inflation, a very interesting phenomenon here in France. The giant supermarket chain Carrefour, one of the biggest in the country, is sticking it to the food industry in a very public way. We're in the soft drinks section, and next to a quite well-known brand of soft drink, there is a sign that says Shrinkflation. This product has seen its quantity go down while the tariff you pay for what it contains has gone up. In other words, you are paying the same or more and you're getting less. Now, quite clearly, Carrefour is doing this in order to show that it is on the side of the consumers. So how do they feel?
I think it's a great initiative. It's important to inform the consumers about what is happening so they can make informed choices.
It's great that Carrefour are doing this. Life is very expensive now, so if I see the price of something going up while the quantity goes down, I'm not going to buy it.
I think that Carrefour has been aware of the issue for months, if not before. I mean, the orange juice, they've been sold in a 900 millimeters package for maybe 3-4 years.
Now, the food industry is not taking this accusation lying down. It's pointed out that the number of products singled out by Carrefour for this shrinkflation treatment is actually tiny, which is perfectly true. Rather more pointedly, a consumer affairs group has accused the supermarket of hypocrisy. That 99-cent bag of potatoes in the cut price section still costs 99 cents, but there are now rather fewer potatoes inside it.
Before we head off, a lot of you getting in touch about Kim Hill's departure from her Saturday show. Oh wow, Kim's off. We'll make the most of her shows prior to the last. Her unmistakable voice, brilliant humour, depth of knowledge, pronunciation of film, her robust approach to interviewing politicians, her genuine interest in the interesting will be greatly missed. Kim helps raise our combined IQs whenever she is on air. Happy days to you, Kim. That from Mike and Deb. This one I adore. My late husband used to call Kim the Black Panther. We'd lie in bed listening to her on Saturday morning and he'd say, she's got the bastard cornered, she's lashing her tail, she's gone for the bloody jugular, got him. Good on you, Kim. I am heartbroken she is leaving. We all owe Kim as a challenging voice and as part of the backdrop of our lives. There will never be another. Well, here it is, people. 11 Kim Hill shows to go. Just 11. So buckle up and stay tuned.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Paul Marier, I'm Evie Ashton. Te Whatu Order is urging the Senior Doctors and Hospital Dentists Union to let members judge its latest offer. The Association of Salaried Medical Specialists has voted to strike for 12 hours on October the 2nd and for 24 hours on October the 24th. ACT